What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and in today's video I'm going to be building an enormous gaming PC build inside one of the biggest cases I've built in this year. A system that's going to provide epic 4K gaming performance, give you good mileage when it comes to things like video editing and rendering too, and assemble a system that should hopefully look pretty insane once it's all put together. So without any further ado, let's dive into it. Did you know that this year marks the 20th anniversary of ASUS Republic of Gamers? And to celebrate, they're giving two lucky winners the chance to fly out for this year's Computex in Taiwan, with your flight and hotel stay covered for good measure. All you've got to do to enter is post a photo or video showing off your ASUS ROG gear. Talk about your story with ROG and use the hashtag ROGHomecomingUK. Then use the first link in the description below to submit your entry, and you could be one of the lucky winners. Check out all the details at the link in the description below, including full terms and conditions and all the info you need to know to enter. Now let's start today's build by walking through some of the components that I've selected to use for this system, and start with none other than the graphics card. Now I never thought I would be saying that of all the GPUs to be affected by the big price increases that we've seen, the RTX 5080 would be one of the less affected cards. Now, to be clear, the 5080 has still gone up in price, especially in some regions compared to others. Here in the UK, 5080 pricing is actually really good right now. It's about the same as it was 6 months ago. In the US, things are a little bit different. But basically what NVIDIA have done, as far as we understand, is stop selling the 5070 Ti so that they can use the video memory in the much more expensive and higher end 5080 instead. This has got 16 gigabytes of GDDR7 video memory, offers up fantastic performance at 4K, and honestly just beats out anything that AMD have got to offer. Not only for the price point, but just at all. With AMD kind of exiting the super high-end GPU space as of the current generation, there are not really any Team Red options that compete with this card. The only thing it gets beaten by is NVIDIA's own RTX 5090, but let's face it, that card is a GPU that was already crazily expensive, and in the current climate is now, well, stupidly expensive. This particular model here today is the ASUS TUF card. It's a really nice cooler design, triple fan. It's 3.5 slots, so it's quite big, and it just looks amazing. It's weird to think that the ASUS TUF brand actually kind of used to be one of their more affordable brands, not so much anymore, and we'll take a closer look at the design of this card a little bit later. Sticking with, I guess, kind of a little bit of an ASUS theme, but I haven't gone TUF, I've gone for the Crosshair series instead, and the motherboard in today's system is this, the X870 Hero. Now when it comes to motherboards, really it depends on the use case of the system. For gaming, you can actually get away with a good B850 motherboard or an entry-level X870 design instead. But if you want to do some content creation, some multitasking, want to use a really high-end CPU with lots of cores and a high TDP, you might want to consider a high-end board like this instead. This Ryzen 9 9950 X3D is my CPU choice. It basically gives you the performance of kind of the 9850 X3D for gaming, but with all the extra cores that you're going to want for multi-threaded applications like video editing and rendering. It maintains the same fantastic stacked L3 cache that makes the X3D chips so good, and it's a perfect match for the build today. If you wanted to in this system, you could go Intel with the Core Ultra 9, which would arguably give you even more multi-core performance, but at the expense at a bit of gaming power. For memory in today's build, I've gone for this Team Group XTREEM DDR5 kit. This is a stealthy kind of all black, all grey design. We've got no RGB, but hopefully it will still tie in pretty well. Now this particular kit is 7200 megahertz. Again, in the current climate where RAM prices are just insane, 7200 megahertz is probably not a realistic thing to replicate. So instead, I would just recommend anything that's got the right capacity with the best speeds and latencies you can find. And I'll link latest pricing and availability for all the parts in today's build in the description down below. Now then, for the cooler, the power supply, and in a moment the case, I've got to give a big shout out to Antec, who sent out a few bits and pieces and kindly sponsored today's video. Now, Antec are a brand that I've used over the years here on the channel and been impressed with. We use one or two of their cases over at GeekaPC, which is my UK pre-building company. I'll link that below. We really like the chassis that we use in those systems. And for today's build, Antec have brought out something special which I think could work really well. Before that, let's take a look at the power supply and the cooler. I've gone for the Antec HVG PRO High Current Gamer. What a name. This is basically a 1200 watt ATX 3.1 and PCI Gen 5.1 power supply. If you're going high end, you're going for a 5080, especially a 5090, you'll want over 1,000 watts, and that ATX 3.1 and PCI 5.1 certification are really important. This one's 80 plus platinum. Cybernetics platinum is also going to be absolutely fine. And in terms of power it's going to deliver on a single 12 volt rail, you'll get the full 1200 watts, which is great. Cooling wise, the Antec have also released a brand new CPU cooler that I saw last year at Computex and was keen to get hold of for this build and requested of them. This is the Antec Vortex View 360, and it might just have one of the largest screens that I've seen on a CPU cooler in a long time. It's also rotatable, so you've got a 5-inch screen that you can spin around to suit your build. That will help with things like memory clearance and also just optimize for whatever info you want to actually show on the cooler screen itself. So that's the power supply, that's the cooler. What about the case? And this is one of the most insane chassis I've looked at in such a long time, and also I think quite possibly the biggest. This is the Antec 900. Now, you OG PC gamers will recognize that name because Antec were known for their Antec 900. This is the new version. This is the 2026 design, and it's enormous. Like, this case is like compared to the size of my head, and my head's quite a decent size. How many heads? 1, 2, 3, 4, 3.5 heads. So yes, pretty massive. The challenge with a case like this is deciding what on earth you're going to put inside of it. So let me strip the panels down and talk you through it. Right, don't drop this bit of glass. This is a big piece of tempered glass. Now, inside the case, we do get quite... the rear panel is even bigger. Now, luckily, inside the case, we do get quite a few fans pre-installed, which helps to fill it out. The challenge is going to be whether we want to keep these fans as they are or replace them for some perhaps RGB looking units a little bit later. Now, we get 340mm fans at the front of the case, 2 reverse blade 120s in intake at the bottom, at the rear 140mm in exhaust, so that's 6 fans included in total. Spin the case around to the back. Build quality feels really rather good, to be honest with you. And you can see we've got all the front panel cables pre-ran here, loads of Velcro grommets, tie-down points, rubber grommets. You can fit 3 2.5-inch SSDs on the motherboard rear panel. On the bottom, where the power supply is, there's another 2 2.5-inch drive mounts. I'm not sure you're going to need them or use them, but we'll see. I also think, providing that the space is going to allow, which I'm confident that it will, I'm probably going to put a vertical GPU mount in this build later to really show off the graphics card in all of its glory. I realised I forgot one component, which is the smallest component in today's build to talk about. SSD, I've gone for the Samsung 9100 Pro, and just for a bit of fun, let's compare the size of the SSD to the size of the case. Yeah, it's a bit stupid, isn't it? How many SSDs can we fit in the case? 10,000, probably. Just leave that there for safekeeping and not forget it's there. Now then, with all of that said and done, first things first, I'm going to get as many components installed into the motherboard as possible, ranging from the 9950 X3D CPU to our 32 gigs of RAM, and finally, our Samsung 9100 Pro SSD, which I of course have for safekeeping. Now, before I move the motherboard into the case, I'm also going to quickly check whether there's any CPU cooler mounting to do, as now is always going to be an easier time to do that ultimately. Now, I have installed Antec coolers before, obviously never installed this one. It's very nice manual, look at this. AMD, how do we do this? Remove the brackets and put new ones on. Specifically, take off the stock AMD mounting brackets, which I've got, and add these plastic ones on instead, presumably using the same screws that the stock AMD brackets are held on with. Something that's going to be nice and easy. Now, the next job is moving what is not a small motherboard into this case to see how small it looks. Yeah, that looks pretty small. Okay, right, get it all lined up. Please tell me, yes, we do have a raised center standoff. I was about to become very worried then. That's going to keep the motherboard in place and allow you to screw in the 9 screws, 3 at the top, 3 along the middle, and of course 3 down the bottom. Now, with the motherboard in, the next step I think is going to be to do the rest of the CPU cooler. The challenge can sometimes be with the cooler that once you've got it in the top, accessing your CPU power cable and stuff, which is up here, can be hard to do. But given the size of the case today, I don't think that's going to be a problem. Now, does this cooler have, notice it's not got RGB fans, even though the actual kind of water block screen section which, by the way, is enormous. Look at that. And comes on this little pivot joint, which I think, is this loosen? Yes, you can unlock the pivot joint here, get it exactly how you want it, and then lock it back in, and then it won't move, which is actually pretty clever. What I might do later is I might change the fans out for some slightly more snazzy designs, but for now, let's get it installed as it is and see what we think. The fans are all pre-installed as well, and look to be, I was going to say daisy chained together, but they aren't, are they? We've just got some universal mounting points for those, and presumably in the box there's going to be a cable to connect them up. To remove the cooler at the top, I'm just going to pull off this cover here. Come on. I'm going to try to anyway. It's got a little thumb point, but I can't get my thumb in. There we are. That's better. That comes off. And what's kind of crazy is despite the fact the front of the case is blocked off, you can still fit a 360mm rad in here, which is not bad going. I'm going to screw this up to the very top with the tubes at the front of the case, which is, in my opinion, the best placement for them to be. Both in terms of working well performance-wise, but also looking good too. Now, the next step is getting our CPU cooler into place. Now, the water block actually fixes on pretty easily because, of course, we added that standardized mounting hardware in earlier. And if I just tilt the screen up, what you should be able to see are the 2 screws at the bottom. I'll circle those. And then at the top, you should also be able to see the further 2 screws. So let me start by screwing one of the top screws in first, then tilting the screen to more easily access one of the bottom screws too. Okay, so that is in and looking pretty good. And what you should be able to see is that we can actually control the screen and have it, as you see here, in portrait mode. You can have it in landscape mode like so. Tilt it up, tilt it down. Actually quite a cool little implementation. And then once you're happy with it, you can kind of lock it into place and it won't move quite as much. Next step of today's build, maybe let's try and get the graphics card in so we can see how it looks. We might have to take it out to do all the cables, wiring, all that kind of stuff in a moment. But let's try the vertical GPU mount and see if that's a way where we can fill this case out just a little bit more. Okay, so the mount is in. I'll link the GPU mount alongside all the other parts I'll be using today in the description below for Amazon and other retailers. And then that should allow us to get this 5080 into place. And I'm hoping A, it's going to fit, and B, it's going to kind of fill the case out a little bit more. Now, oh, that's tight, but I think probably okay. And what I'm actually going to do to stop this from basically sagging too much is first and foremost make sure that it's installed straight, and then use the ASUS included GPU support bracket to actually support the vertical GPU bracket. Now, let's tilt the screen up, get that out of the way, push back the clip on the PCI Gen 5 slot, and then remove the rear 2 most screws on the actual bracket itself. The advantage of a big case is we've got loads and loads of room to work in. Yes, this is going to have to come out for our power supply cable and wiring. However, as far as a test fit goes, we should have plenty of space. Now, slide the graphics card in, get it hovered over the PCI slot, get it lined up. We are in. Oh yes, look at that. Now, getting these GPU screws in is going to be a little bit of a squeeze. In fact, I've got the perfect... Now, take 2. In fact, I've got the perfect tool for the job. I've got this little short stubby screwdriver, add in my magnetic screwdriver bit, and that should enable me to get in here a bit more easily. Yes, yes it has. There we go, a few more rotations, and that'll do us for now. Now the good news is the CPU cooler screen actually just about fits. I think that looks really good actually. And our graphics card, wow, it's in there perfectly. Room to breathe at the front, and it's definitely starting to fill out this side portion of the case just here. Now, the next stage of the build, and basically, I want to say the last stage, is the power supply. And here I can have a look at Antec HVG High Current Gamer Pro and see what this unit is all about. A quick look at the cables on this power supply, and I've got to say I'm pretty impressed. This is a trend that we're seeing more and more. We've got this individual nylon sleeving. It would be nice if there was maybe like a cable cone pre-installed here, but nonetheless, we should be good to go. You can see it's a pretty nice 1200 watt unit. You've got your fully modular interface at the back, your single GPU power connector for your 12 volt high power, which is absolutely fine. And in terms of length and size, it's about typical for what we'd expect of a 1200 watt unit nowadays. I'm going to plug in cables for the motherboard, for the CPU, for the GPU, and also some SATA power cables, just in case we need them for any RGB controllers, USB hubs, that kind of thing a bit later. Now, Antec do sell an iShift kit for this case, which I'll put some B-roll of on your screen now, which allows you to rotate the power supply 90 degrees. That basically emulates what we see from some of the Shift designs. However, I've already got the cables in. This is already the stock configuration, and I think, to be honest with you, this is going to work absolutely fine. So just get it lined up at the back, and then of course add the 4 screws in that come included with both the power supply or the case, either or, to get this secured down. So I've managed to get the motherboard power cable in on the right hand side, CPU power up in the top left, but in order to get the front panel cables in, I am going to need to take the graphics card vertical GPU mount out. Perhaps a note for anyone copying this build at home, maybe do the front panel cables before getting all excited and putting the GPU in. I just couldn't help myself, okay? It was too tempting to get the graphics card in there. I'm then going to move on to the front panel cables, everything from the HD audio in the bottom left, front panel bottom right, and then of course our USB 3 Type A and Type C connections on the right hand side of the board too. Now, with all those cables in, I'm also going to run through a GPU power connector through the bottom of the motherboard, and what I'm going to do is actually plug this in to the side of our RTX 5080 now before returning the vertical GPU mount into place. This cable's nice and long, which makes this easy to do, and I just have a feeling this should make life just a little bit easier. I'm kind of out of breath after doing that. And the good news is, this thing's pretty much ready. Now, I talked earlier about maybe adding in some RGB fans, but honestly, I actually don't think this case is actually going to suit that design aesthetic. So instead, I'm going to take a moment to tidy up some of the cables and then boot this thing up to check out performance, but first, how it looks in the only way we know how, here on the GeekaWhat channel. A different looking gaming PC build then. What do you guys think of this all stealthy black design? Not something we're used to that much here on the channel, but nice to build something a little bit different. Now, I tested this build across the latest titles at 4K high settings using rasterization, so no ray tracing or DLSS really in the mix here. Let's start off with Arc Raiders first of all. 4K high sees an average frame rate of over 120 FPS with solid 1 and 0.1% lows. Battlefield 6 drops the frame rate down slightly, but stays above that 100 FPS marker with 103 frames per second at the 4K high settings preset, while Marvel's Rivals, again tested at similar settings, also delivers over 100 FPS. Only just with 100.5 FPS on average, but still not a bad effort. Frame rates in the next 3 titles do lower as we dive into a more demanding territory. Cyberpunk 2077, first of all, at 4K high, sees an average frame rate of over 90 frames per second on average, with 92 in the in-game benchmark mode. Resident Evil Requiem at 4K high settings sees an average of 87 frames per second, around 5 FPS lower than Cyberpunk, but still very playable, while Crimson Desert is the most demanding of all the titles tested today, at 4K high, pulling in 80 frames a second, or 81.7 to be precise. This is a game where you're going to benefit from things like upscaling. They're going to make a difference, especially if you want to game at this top 4K resolution, so that is something you might want to consider. You can find latest part pricing and availability for all components in this system linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.